What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we will be discussing something else, not related to the chess drama that's been rocking the chess world, the drama between Hikaru Nakamura and Vladimir Kramnik, but something completely unrelated. I'm talking about coverage of the 2023 Sinquefield Cup. Today we will be discussing about a game that happened yesterday in round 6 between Alireza Firouzja and our boy Fabi. Fabi has been missing from the channel for the last couple of episodes, and a lot of you have asked why is that? Well, there's a very simple reason. The man has business to attend, and he did attend business yesterday in round 6. Take a look at what happened in this crazy game. Let's get straight into it. e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4, knight to f6, and this is the very typical gioco piano. These two players have been playing the gioco piano, the quiet game in Italian, if my Duolingo serves me well. These players know the ins and outs of this particular opening. Everybody at the top level is playing this, but the next move is a borrowed page from Hikaru's book. Let's not forget, Hikaru defeated Fabi at the 2023 Norway Chess in a critical final game with the move knight to g5. That is the fried liver. d5, take on d5, and knight to a5. You might be wondering, why not take on d5 with the knight? Well, the problem is that after knight takes f7, king takes f7, and queen to f3, the king goes for a walk. King to e6 to defend the knight on d5, and right now after knight to c3, reinforcing the threat of this knight on d5, the position is tremendous for white. In fact, this is considered to be already a winning position for white. Everybody knows it at the beginner's level, and definitely everybody knows it at the 2800 level. So let's get back into the game. Of course, Fabiano did not take on d5. Knight to a5 was the move. This is a very typical response. And the players are following the game from Norway Chess and many other games. This is very typical for this variation. c6, cover up the check, take on c6, and bishop to d3. And now knight to d5, opening up the action of the queen, also setting up for ideas of knight to f4. Now, black has sacrificed a pawn at the same time. You have a lot of activity for it, and white still hasn't finished his development. This is the battleground in this particular opening. h4, huge move by Alireza. In the game between Hikaru and Fabi, Hikaru just simply retreated with the knight to f3, and that was, by the way, a tremendous game by Hikaru. Kudos to him, he won an incredible game in that one. h4, h6, and queen to h5. Now, of course, you cannot take on g5 because the rook on h8 is going to drop, and you're going to lose material and get into a losing position. You have to defend against the checkmate. Queen takes f7 is coming. So queen to f6, defending against the checkmate. And it's worth noting that after knight to e4, queen to e6, and b3, Fabiano was already starting to think. I do believe that he still had some idea of what he needs to do, but he wasn't sure about the particularities of this opening. Alireza, as you can see on the clock, on the time expenditure, 1 hour and 33 minutes at this point, he was still very much in his opening preparation. g6, queen to e2, and f5. Very aggressive, but this is in fact the best way to play for black as well. You want, again, to put as much pressure and not allow your opponent to finish his development, not allow white to finish his development. Knight to c3, as you can see, we all know the superfluous knights. White does not want to go to g3 because that knight is going to be absolutely dominated on g3. You can even play a move such as h5 later on in the future and completely kill this knight. As you can see, it doesn't have where to go. This pawn on g6 dominates the knight on g3 by defending the f5 and h5 squares. So Of course, Alireza goes back to c3, but now we see the superfluous knights. That means the knights are stepping on each other's hooves. They're not great knights in this particular position. Bishop to g7, bishop to b2, castle, knight to a3. Alireza still within his preparation. 1 hour and 32 minutes at this point. He gained time compared to what he started off with. This definitely must be quite intimidating. And Fabi spent a long time on this move e4 because it's such a critical move. It looks like the move that you have to make in the position because, once again, you have to do something to take more space, to get more trumps in the position. At the same time, opening up this diagonal, miking on g8, after the exchange of the bishops on g7 and b2, the potential exchange of the bishops on b2 and g7, it could become weak. So there's a lot of things that Fabi had to take into consideration when he played this move e4. Best move in the position nonetheless. Bishop to c4, knight takes c4, queen takes c4, and now the next move, rook to b8, is not considered to be the best move. Nevertheless, if you look at it from a human's perspective, this is the move that makes the most sense because you need to find a way to what most likely will be white's king on the queen side. As we will see, he did go long castle. I don't think white wants to go short castle for the simple fact that look at my offensive on the king side. Black's offensive on the king side. I can at some point play the move f4, f3, and if the king lies on g1, especially after this move h4, that king is going to be very weakened, right? So most likely white is going to go long castle. How do I take advantage of that? Well, it's very simple. I'm going to set up this cannon on the b file and potentially try to get rid of this pin. I don't want to move the knight and allow the exchange of the queens because, again, white is a pawn up. If he manages to exchange the queens, he's going to have a tremendous advantage in the endgame. So first I need to kick this queen away from this diagonal. How do I do that? With a move rook to b4 coming up next. Rook to b8, by the engine, not considered the best move. Nevertheless, from a human's perspective, this to my eyes looks very natural. Long castle, rook to b4, and queen to e2. a5, and now an important move for white would have been knight takes d5, but I have to say this one is not an easy move to make for the simple fact that, first of all, you allow me to reinforce this pawn on e4. Look at this threatening spearhead on e4. Where is your knight going, right? Knight c4 doesn't work anymore because obviously the pawn on d5 is a tremendous asset for black. And if you have to play d4 and allow bishop to a6, allow another pin in the position, I understand. The engine is saying that sure, white is going to be fine, but it's not a practical decision. It's not a practical way in which most humans operate. Leaving this knight, exchanging the pieces that don't look like the pieces that you should be exchanging, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I have to say I'm not surprised by the fact that Alireza already started making some bad decisions at this point. He played the move rook to e1. And I really like the next move for Fabiano. a4, missed opportunity, as you can see this X, but again, from a practical perspective, I like this move. Knight to f4 was the better move in the position, and then follow it up with the move a4. And it has a very nice tactical idea behind it. Take a look at this. You see the position and you see the potential move g3, right? Kick the knight away. The problem with this move, and maybe this is something that Fabi missed in his calculation, because I can guarantee you he definitely looked at the move knight to f4, is that I'm going to take on b3. And this is where the tactical shot comes into play. Take a look at this. Knight to d3 check. Take that. Queen takes b3, and now you get checkmated. There's absolutely no way you're going to be able to defend on this side. If you go bishop to a1, first of all, this knight on a3 is going to die a painful death. The king on c1 is completely doomed right now. So this was the reason why knight to f4 was so powerful. You had this idea of swinging the knight to d3. This would have been a tremendous play by Fabi, but he decided to go a4, again putting a lot of pressure on white. g3, defending against knight to f4. As you can see, from a practical perspective, once you see the move a4, now you start seeing calculating the exchange on b3 and then this idea of knight to f4, d3. So it makes sense that Alireza sees that as very threatening and decides to defend against it. Take on b3, and queen to d6. I'm starting to look at this idea of moving the rook away and maybe taking on a3 in the future after the exchange of these two bishops. Again, these bishops are already looking at each other. They're on the same diagonal. At some point, the knight on a3 is going to be weakened. f3, a good move by Alireza. You need to do something. You need to break this pawn center and potentially create your own attack, your own counter attack against my king on g8. Queen to c5, knight to b1, setting up a very nice block of pieces, defending this knight on c3, not allowing black to fulfill his attack on the queen side. Rook to e8, take on e4, and bishop to a3. And at this point, it does look like white is going to take the exchange. At the same time, after the weakening of the king and the dark squares around the king, there's going to be a lot of compensation. Queen to a5, bishop takes b4, knight takes b4, d4. And this is already a step in the wrong direction, but I have to say the position was already not easy for white. The best move would have been to give a check first. Queen to c4, king to h7, and now you have to make moves such as rook to e3, bring another defender. The idea being that once you do take on c3, at some point I will take back with a rook, and that's not going to allow this queen to invade around the white king via a3, right? Because the knight is going to be still on b1. So you need to find a way to keep this knight on b1 and not allow the queen to invade. It's not an easy task. Queen to c4, rook to e3 is definitely not something that comes naturally. It's not a natural idea. So he played the move d4. e3, the problem with d4 is this particular move e3, and I have to say Fabi is conducting a very beautiful attack right now, stopping the king's escape on d2. Also, the pawn on e3 is such a threatening thorn in white's position. King to b2, h5, knight to a3, and this was already a big mistake by Alireza. I would say the move that lost the game. The best move maybe in the position would have been knight to a4. Again, you need to find a way to stop the invasion via the a file, but it's not easy. These are not easy moves. I'm looking at the position, I'm seeing c5, I'm seeing this monster of a bishop on the long diagonal on g7, looking at the king. This, from a practical perspective, is an almost losing position, whether you play the move knight to a4 or not. He did not. He played the move knight to a3, and after bishop to g4, queen to c4, king to h7, queen to f7. Sure, a good way to try to create some sort of counter chances, especially as we enter that final stage of the game where both players don't have a lot of time on their clock. As you can see, 7 minutes for Alireza, 8 minutes for Fabiano. Rook to f8, queen to e7, bishop takes d1, rook takes d1, and rook to f2. This was a critical mistake. Rook to f2. But it's not one that it's easy to take advantage of, as you will see in just a second. The next move is extremely difficult to make. The best move in the position to pretty much win the game at this point was c5. It's based on the idea that you cannot take on c5 like this. I just simply take, and now I go e2, rook to e1, knight to d5. You have to stop me from, promoting on this side. Knight to d5. You can defend, surely. But then I have a couple of options of winning this one. I can just simply take, and rook to f3, pick up the knight. But the best way and the most convincing way to win this one is to take, and now in fact just simply take advantage of this very, very tremendous spin by just simply, this spin of course, by just simply defending the pawn on e2 with a move rook to e8. You're completely tied up as white. You just simply don't have time to untie yourself. And if you go c6, I go rook to e3, you go c7, that's okay. I'm just simply going to take. You're going to go king to b1. I'm going to take. I'm going to allow you, in fact, to get a queen on the board. And then all I have to do is just defend once again my king. And then I'm going to promote the queen with tremendous consequences. Bishop to c3, you give a check, but that's not enough. I go bishop to g7, I cover everything, I go e1 next move, and this is all she wrote. So c5 was a tremendous opportunity for Fabiano. He perhaps did not spot it, or perhaps he did not assess it correctly. He played the move rook to f2. The golden opportunity for Alireza. Right now, he had a move that maybe would have given him some serious chances of getting back into this game. And that move was knight to c4. Very, very difficult move to make because you're allowing rook takes c2. That's a check, and I have so many pieces swarming around your king, but you're not getting checkmated. And this is absolutely ridiculous because king to b1, sure, you can go queen to f5, setting up this very beautiful potential discovery check. But then I just simply, very calmly, take on e3. Not getting rid necessarily of the pawn on e3, though. That's, that's a trump as well. But in fact, attacking the queen right now. And after queen to f2, just simply queen takes b4. Rook to b2, king to c1, bishop to h6, setting up this pin, threatening checkmate in one move. But now you're just simply going to give me a perpetual. And I don't have time to defend with the bishop because that's going to take away from this pin. And that would mean that white is going to just simply be a piece up. So all I have to do is just go king g8, you give me a check, you go back, you give me another check, and we shake hands. This would have been a draw. Alireza, unfortunately for him, did not spot this move knight to c4 under tremendous pressure coming from Fabiano, and he played the move knight to e4, which is the losing move in the position. After rook takes c2, you cannot take on c2 because then I just simply go queen to a2 and pick up that rook with tremendous, and by the way, you can try to go out if you want, but the problem is knight to d5. I'm not going to take on c2, knight to d5, take the queen later, or I can just simply give you a check in one move, checkmate in one move with queen to a6. Beautiful geometry in the position from black. So, getting back to the game, he played the move king to b1, rook to f2, and perhaps this was the move that he missed it. Alireza, not allowing knight to f6. By the way, you don't have time to take because knight to f6 is coming with a checkmate attack, right? If you go to h6, I take on e3, that's a checkmate. If you go to h8, then I go to e8, that's checkmate as well. So you have to still be careful. You have to defend against knight to f6 as black. And he found it. Double exclam for Fabiano. Rook to f2, very beautiful move. Missed surely by Alireza. And after knight to g5, king to h8. The thing is, I have enough pieces. It's a very funny way. I collected with my rook. I collected that pawn on c2. I opened up your king. And now I'm coming back to the defense with rook to f2, rook to f8. A very beautiful concept for Fabiano. And after queen takes g6, the thing is, this endgame, you're completely lost because of my pawn on e3. You cannot stop my pawn on e3 from promotion. You will have to give me a lot of material to stop that pawn from simply promoting. Queen takes f5, rook takes f5, rook to e1, bishop to d4, defending that pawn on e3, knight to c2, bishop to c3, good move. Knight takes e3. If you try to take with the rook, the problem is you get checkmated, almost checkmated. You can go knight to e1, but that just loses a piece. So he played knight takes c3, rook takes g5, pick up this knight, you pick the rook back, and I take on e1, I'm going to end up with an extra piece, and that's going to be enough material advantage to finish the game. If you haven't already, make sure you check our new merch. We have a lot of fun stuff on the website, c-squared.shop. As you can see, a bunch of designs right now. We're very proud of them. We worked a lot on them, and I think you guys will love it as well. As you can see, take a look at this one. Cat playing chess T. So we've been discussing about cat sweaters for a while. Fabi really loves cat sweaters. Well, we decided to put a cat in a sweater. Also, as you can see, the cat, he or she, I'm not 100% sure what the gender of the cat is, but they're playing the Archangels, Fabi's opening. So take a look at this. We put a lot of work into the details of these garments, and I think you guys will love it as well. See you guys in the next episode.